than the sun.
Sorry, Prabhu, I forgot to record it. Continue, please.
Only at that time is the attachment to Krishna perfect. Only at that time is the attachment to Krishna perfect. Spontaneously, the devotee becomes eager to serve the Lord in his ecstatic love. At this stage, the devotee is on the platform of Uttam Adhikari, perfect devotion. Such a devotee has no agitation from material affections and is interested only in the service of Radha and Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So let's understand what we just read, because some very important concepts that are actually familiar concepts, but sometimes the language is different and we find it hard to relate. So let's go back to the first sentence. By the process of executing regulated devotional service, which means the Bhava Bhakti, one is actually elevated to the transcendental stage. Here, that transcendental stage is being talked about is Bhava Bhakti. So by performing Vaidhi Bhakti, or through Raganuga Bhakti, we can move to Bhava Bhakti, which is beyond the modes of material nature. How? The next sentence explains that. At that time, one's heart becomes illuminated like the sun. Now, what does that mean? There's a very famous verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, which says, Krishna Surisam Maya Andhakar, Jahan Krishna Taha Nahi Mayar Adhikar. So what does that mean? Maya causes avidya, ignorance, which is compared to the darkness. And it says, that verse says that whenever Krishna is present, just like when there is sun, there is no darkness, the sun completely eliminates any darkness. Similarly, Krishna's presence completely eliminates any avidya, which is ignorance. And the ignorance is coming from the modes of material nature, which means attachment to material things, the ego and all those kind of things. They're completely gone by the time you get there. So that's basically what this is saying there. And it's also saying that it's very hard for avidya to come when Krishna is present. So saying when the devotee is purified like the sun, means that's gone, then and then only the ecstatic love appears in the heart. And it says very nicely that ecstatic love is more glorious than the sunshine, because the sunshine is still mundane. Okay? And at that time, the attachment to Krishna becomes perfect. Attachment to Krishna become perfect means no attachment left for the material things. And at that point, the devotee is on the Uttam Adhikari platform. In other words, unless you are an Uttam Adhikari, you cannot develop bhava. And it says, once you get to that stage, there's no agitation from any material attachments, material affections, and the only interest is in the heart of the devotee to serve Radha and Krishna for their pleasure. So that's basically what this paragraph is saying, or the very different language was used. So I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions or comments. Excuse me. Yes, Prabhu. Anand Prabhu.
Prabhuji, you mentioned about Maya. I haven't been able to reconcile with Maya. Like I don't know what's wrong. Like sometimes we say it is energy of Krishna, okay, which is not bad, it's good. And other time we say Maya is bad. I find it difficult to understand sometimes.
Well, so sometimes the words get used that are confusing. So it is correct that Maya is external potency of Krishna. It is non-different from Krishna. So how can it be bad? I mean, there you go, right? But Maya acts as a servant of Krishna who has been given some very specific instructions by Krishna. And like a perfect servant, it executes those instructions perfectly. And what is the instruction? Do not allow anyone to come close to me. to come to like Golok Vrindavan Dham, unless you have tested them fully to make sure that they have no material attachment left. So Maya does its job in a very strange way, in that it punishes people for having material attachment. So from a mundane perspective, we say Maya is bad because it's punishing us. Also, we interpret that act by the instruction that's been given to it, it executes perfectly, which involves giving the material allurements to the devotee. And in that sense, it turns the devotee away from Krishna. Because when there's material attachment, you won't know Krishna. So then the aspiring devotees say, Maya is bad because it turned me away from Krishna. Which is all consistent with this role. So depending upon which way you come from, Maya is bad or Maya is not bad. From transcendental spiritual perspective, Maya cannot be bad. It's a pure servant and non-different from Krishna. But from aspiring devotee perspective, it's bad because it moves us away from Krishna by giving us material allurement. But that's our fault, not Maya's fault. It's like the story about Janak Maharaj. Narad Muni once asked him, why is it so difficult to get rid of Maya? And they were walking in a garden, and Janak Maharaj did not say anything, and afterward he stopped and hugged a tree. Hugged a tree very hard and started saying, oh, tree, please let me go. Tree, please let me go. Please, tree, please let me go. And Narad Muni said, Maharaj, what are you doing? And he said, I'm answering your question. Because what it meant was that we don't let go of Maya, and we compare to Maya, it won't let us go. And say it's bad. So that's basically what's happening. Does that give you better reconciliation?
Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, somewhat. I had a follow-up, but
yeah, it's a
if
detail.
I'm taking too much time, please let me know.
Okay. Yeah, so we can talk about it later.
Yeah, okay, Haribol.
Sure, thank you, bro. Anybody else? Okay, all right. Who would like to read the next paragraph?
I can go ahead. Okay.
Please go ahead.
To clarify, in the previous chapters, the symptoms of devotional service were explained along with instruction as to how we may execute devotional service with our present senses and gradually rise to the platform of ecstasy in spontaneous love. And the two kinds of devotional service, namely devotional service through regulative principle and through spontaneous love, were discussed. Within the stage of the regulative principles of devotional service, there are two divisions, namely executive and effective. The effective portion of devotional service is called bhava or ecstasy. In this connection, there is a statement in the Tantras that ecstasy is the first symptom of pure love for the personality of Godhead. And in that stage, one is sometimes found shedding tears or shivering. Not always are these symptoms manifest, but occasionally. When King Ambarish was put into difficulty by Durvasa, he began to think of the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus there were some changes.
Hold on, please. We only do one paragraph at a time. Is this second paragraph?
Okay. It's the same paragraph, Prabhuji.
Oh, is it? Okay. In my
Yeah.
separate. Okay, go ahead, please. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Few lines remaining now.
Go ahead, please go ahead.
Thus there were some changes in his body and tears were falling from his eyes. These symptoms were activities of ecstasy. They are visible in the shivering of the body and the shedding of tears. After the outward appearance of these ecstatic symptoms, they stay within the mind, and continuation of the ecstasy is called samadhi. This stage of appreciation becomes the cause of future exchanges of loving affairs with Krishna.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a big paragraph. All right. So basically, in the previous chapters, specifically chapter 2, we read that the purpose of sadhana bhakti is to, who wants to answer that? What is the purpose of sadhana bhakti?
To develop the love for Krishna.
Okay, that's true, but I'm looking for a very specific word here because that's what we're talking about.
To
Bhava
move to the Bhava Bhakti, Prabhuji.
Bhakti, exactly. Bhava Bhakti that leads to Prema Bhakti. So the immediate purpose of performing sadhana bhakti, whether it's Vaidhi or Raganuga, is to awaken bhava in our heart. Okay, so it's saying that in the previous chapter 2, we talked about how Vaidhi bhakti, which involves the use of our senses, can be used to gradually rise to the platform of bhava bhakti. And we've been through all that. So, and as we know, sadhana bhakti has two components, Vaidhi bhakti and Raganuga bhakti. We discussed them both. And now what we're saying is here that the devotional service has two divisions, executive and effective. So what is executive? Sadhana bhakti is executive because it involves the execution of devotional practice. With me so far? And bhava bhakti is effective because the effect of that devotional practice. I'm going to pause and make sure that I didn't confuse you.
Prabhuji, could you repeat this one?
I'm sorry, say again?
Could you please repeat this one?
Yeah, of course. So basically it is saying that two divisions of bhakti. One is executive bhakti, which is where you're executing the devotional practice, which is sadhana bhakti. With me so far?
Yep.
Okay. Then saying bhava bhakti is called effective bhakti, not because it's effective, but because the effect of that devotional practice. So sadhana bhakti is called executive because it involves execution of devotional practice. Bhava bhakti is called effective because it's the effect of that devotional practice. And this is why we were saying earlier, sadhana bhakti, the purpose is to get to bhava bhakti. So it's basically the same thing being said in different words. So I'm going to pause again and see if that made it any clearer. Is it
Thank
clear?
you.
Yes, Prabhuji, it gives clear now.
Okay, all right. Then, and then basically it says the effective portion of devotional service is called bhava. Okay, or ecstasy. Okay, then it's talking about the ecstasy being the first symptom of prema bhakti. So this is why we said earlier, last week, that bhava bhakti is the preliminary stage of prema bhakti. Now, in bhava bhakti, some what's known in Sanskrit as sattvic vikars, sattvic vikar, what's the ecstatic symptoms are manifested. And a couple of them are mentioned here, shedding tears or shivering. Okay. Now, they may not always manifest, but occasionally they do manifest. And the example is given of King Ambarish here. We all know the story about King Ambarish and Durvasa Muni. And as Durvasa Muni was running for his life from the chakra, King Ambarish was standing there. For a whole year, he stood there and constantly thinking about the lotus feet of the Lord. And then there were tears falling from his eyes out of ecstasy of how merciful my Lord is. His body was shivering also. Now the point is being made is that sometimes after this outward appearance of ecstatic symptoms like shivering and tears of the eyes, they actually stay within the mind and the ecstasy continues, and that's when the person is said to be in samadhi, because it doesn't know anything else now. It's just those manifestations are there, emotions are there, and they're totally immersed into that. In other words, you can say when bhava appears, it actually permeates one's consciousness to such an extent that it becomes one with the mind. In other words, bhava becomes both the cause and the effect. Bhava causes the symptoms, and then the symptoms become so entrenched in the mind that becomes the effect of Bhava Bhakti also, which is the manifestation of these symptoms. I'm going to pause again because there were a lot of big words used. Is that clear what I'm trying to say here?
Prabhuji, the last one, cause and effect. Bhava itself is a cause as well as effect.
In
Please,
this case. So cause is Bhava Bhakti of the symptoms,
Okay.
right? The symptoms, when they permeate the consciousness to the degree that they become one with the mind, that's the effect. But still Bhava Bhakti.
Yeah.
So I'll give an example to make it more clear. Often Prabhupada gave the example of an iron rod. You put in the fire. Eventually, it becomes permeated by the qualities of the fire to such an extent that it becomes one with the fire, or it appears to become one with the fire. You know that example, right?
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji.
So same thing. The fire now becomes the cause of the iron rod being so hot, but the iron hot rod becomes like fire. That's the effect. So fire is the cause and the effect. I know that makes it any clearer.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Don't say yes if it's not clear. Okay, silence means yes, so I'll keep going. So there's a Sanskrit word called tadatmaka, which is this condition when the mind and the bhava become one. Okay, now once we get to Bhava Bhakti, the service to the Lord becomes very relishable, because it is then that one can taste and actually realize the sweet pastimes of the Lord. And that's why the last line it says, this stage of appreciation becomes the cause of future exchanges of loving affairs with Krishna. So this is when the devotee can actually start to participate in some of the pastimes, or at least participate as an observer. So the pastimes actually start to appear in front of the Lord, in front of the devotee. Okay? It's getting too complicated.
Yes.
Okay, so you have to ask questions, because I don't know how else to explain. You have to ask questions.
I wanted to bring it, Prabhuji. Some of the videos, most of us probably have seen those, when Prabhupada is sometimes says like, what you can give Krishna. I think there is a video, if all of you remember probably that, watching that. What can you give Krishna? And he's shedding tear. Like I when I watch that video, I see like he wants to do it, like express it fully, but couldn't, or he did not. So controlling bhava is another thing that is also part of it, that we are not known as something sentimental or something.
Well, when it becomes same as mind, then you lost control. Then you have no control. It's all very spontaneous. It's very spontaneous.
Prabhupada, in that is, I have seen one of that video is this, just like very, he's expressing bhava, just like shed tears coming from his eye, and I feel like he's trying to control.
Yeah, but he can't.
And occasionally tears, all of us probably have experienced that occasionally.
Unfortunately,
tears.
very occasionally.
Yeah, here
Not
and
often
there
enough.
sometimes.
Yes.
That's mostly related to our own pain, probably more than bhava.
Not there yet, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, next paragraph. Somebody wants to go?
I can, Prabhuji.
Please go ahead.
Okay, I think I am it. Okay, elevation to this stage of ecstasy can be possible in two ways. One way is by constant association with pure devotees, The other way is by special mercy of Krishna or by the mercy of pure devotees of Krishna. Elevation to the ecstatic stage in the life is generally attained through association
Sorry,
with pure devotees.
there is something. Did you miss a line? Because my book says the purport is that one should execute.
Nahi, Prabhuji, my book says this.
Oh, okay. So, of course, please read again.
Shall I start from the beginning?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Elevation to this stage of ecstasy can be possible in two ways. One way is by constant association with pure devotees. The other way is by the special mercy of Krishna or by the mercy of pure devotees of Krishna. Elevation to the static stage of life is generally attained through association with pure devotees, while elevation to that stage by the special mercy of Krishna or his devotees is very rare. The purport is that, now it says, the
Okay.
purport is that one should execute devotional service rigidly in the association of devotees so that there will be certainly in rising oneself to the ecstatic position. In special cases, of course, there is special favor from Krishna. And although we should always expect that, we should not sit idly and simply wait for Krishna's special mercy. The regular duty must be performed. It is just as when sometimes it is found that a person who never attends school or college may be recognized as a great scholar, or an honorary degree from great universities may be offered to him, but this does not mean that one should avoid school and expect to automatically receive the honorary degree from some university. Similarly, one should devotionally execute the regulated principles of devotional services and at the same time hope for Krishna's favor for his devotees' favor.
Thank you. So here Prabhupada is explaining that there are two ways in which Bhava Bhakti may be achieved. One is called Sadhana Siddh, other is called Kripa Siddh. And we'll talk about that in more detail later on. But basically, again, going back to what we have been saying all these months, that as we perform our sadhana, which is Vaidhi Bhakti, moving to Raganuga Bhakti, it leads to Bhava Bhakti. So those are who get there by the process of executing Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti are known as sadhana siddhas. Sadhan siddhas. Siddha means perfection or perfect. and the process is hearing and chanting and other processes in association with pure devotees. Okay, so that's a very big point that we'll discuss in more detail in the next few paragraphs. But the point is devotional service is being practiced in the association of the devotees. And that leads to Bhava Bhakti. They are known as sadhana siddhas. And then there are those who are known as kripa siddhas. Kripa means mercy. So the kripa siddhas get Bhava Bhakti by the mercy of Krishna or by his pure devotees. And again, that will be explained in more detail in the next few paragraphs. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about associating with the pure devotees. A pure devotee has no business other than hearing and chanting about Krishna. So those of you who may remember Bhagavad Gita 10.9, it says, Mat chitta madgat prana bodhyantas parasparam kathyantas chumam nitya tushyanti cha ramanti cha. So pure devotees, their only business is to bodhyantas parasparam. They discuss Krishna Katha with each other every day, all the time. And that is what gives them nourishment as well as satisfaction. So therefore, associating with a pure devotee automatically implies that all you're doing is practicing devotional service of hearing and chanting. Okay. So, however, the point that's been made here is that just hearing and chanting is not enough. It must be done in the association of the devotees, because sadhana siddhas also require the mercy of the pure devotees and or Krishna. And the difference from kripa siddhas is that the kripa siddhas may not have done any Vaidhi bhakti, but they receive the mercy anyway. And we'll talk about that again in the future paragraphs. Okay. Now, the other point is, vast majority, like 99.9% of Bhava Bhaktas are sadhana siddhas. In other words, they have come through the ranks, they followed the process. Kripa siddhas are very, very rare, extremely rare. And therefore, we all have to continue to perform sadhana bhakti and not just wait for the mercy of the Lord. The example that Prabhupada gave in the paragraph we just read is like somebody getting an honorary PhD from a university. Well, now he'll be called doctor, whatever. He may never have gone to a university, but he'll now be called doctor. But we cannot stop going to school and then university if we want a PhD, in the hope that somebody will confer upon us an honorary PhD. So same thing here. We cannot sit, let's wait for Krishna's mercy to get Bhava Bhakti. We have to keep trying. We have to follow the process. The other thing is, Bhava Bhaktas don't necessarily stop performing Vaidhi Bhakti or Raganuga Bhakti. They continue to do that. So, I mean, we see examples of all these pure devotees who are still performing Aarti, who are still chanting the holy name, who are still listening to Katha. All that is Vaidhi Bhakti, but they're performing it. Okay, any questions on that?
I have a slight confusion.
Hmm.
Just to clarify that I'm understanding it right. So, Uttama Adhikari ke baad Bhav Bhakti aati hai.
No, yeah, we were saying you have to be on Uttam Adhikari platform to get Bhava Bhakti. You cannot be Kanishta Adhikari, you cannot be Madhyam Adhikari and get to Bhava Bhakti. Okay?
Yeah. So, Prabhuji, jab abhi humne statement bola that the person who's experiencing Bhava Bhakti is experiencing both cause and effect. Can we understand it through Prabhupada's example? Because when he was in like Radha Damodar temple, I heard like so many lectures where everybody say he's crying and people realize he's crying. It could be understand in that terms, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And otherwise, they will not be, the tears will not be genuine. Then you get to Sahajiya. Madhu Mataji, you look so puzzled.
No, it's okay, Prabhuji.
It's okay. All right. Anybody else?
Prabhuji, what I wanted to say is that aren't Kripa Bhakti, as you said, it's difficult to get, right? Kripa Siddhas, right?
Yeah.
That's what. But aren't we recipients of Kripa, like from the Parampara, the recipients, like, but the fact just we are sitting and listening to you, aren't mercies flowing through you to us, and it came to you through Prabhupada or his disciples, right? Is it not like that?
Yeah. So thank you for asking. That's a very good question. Yes, it is like that. Kripa Siddhas are those who didn't do any of what we are doing and got Siddha anyway. Siddhi anyway.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that later. But we are going through the process of becoming sadhana siddhas. But we cannot get Bhava Bhakti even with, or despite sadhana, all the sadhana we do, without the mercy of the Lord and the devotees. But the difference is both of them require Krishna's mercy or devotees' mercy. But Kripa Siddhas haven't done sadhana bhakti. That's the difference.
Okay.
They both require Krishna mercy, devotees' mercy, but one has not done sadhana bhakti at all.
But Prabhuji, can we say once they do that, like they kripa, and then do they do normal like hearing, chanting, and all that sadhana, those kripa siddhas?
They may. They may. They may do it, yeah. They don't have to, but they may. So, for example, many pure devotees don't do all the 9 processes of devotional service. They just do one. Right? And that's what I was saying earlier, that becoming Bhava Bhakta doesn't mean you stop doing those things. It's just that you don't have to follow all the rules and regulations. For example, they can take cashews from their pocket and tell Krishna, okay, you eat it. No mantras, no tantras, no mudras, no plate, nothing. Right? Or they can insist, no, Krishna, come down, sit on my lap and eat it. And there are stories like that. Right? Actually, we know stories about a couple of children. As a matter of fact, Raghunandan Das, who was the son of Murari Gupta, I think, and one time, Murari Gupta's pure devotee. One time he had to go to town, so he told his son to make sure he offers bhoga to Krishna and make sure he eats it. So he said, okay. And so he went away for the whole day. When he came back, he asked his son, where's the prasadam? He said, what do you mean, where it is? Krishna ate it. And he said, this is my 5-6-year-old boy is just being naughty. He says, what are you talking about? Did you not offer it? He said, yes, I did. And Krishna ate it, so there's nothing left. So he didn't believe him. He said, okay, do it again tomorrow. And so tomorrow he did it again, and he washed, hiding himself outside the room. And he noticed that the boy sat down, Raghunath Das, and said to Krishna, please come and eat. Krishna wouldn't come. He said, look, you got to eat. My father told me I have to offer it to you, so you have to sit and eat. He wouldn't come. Said, look, yesterday you went through the same thing. You go through this again. Come sit down and eat. Krishna came down, and he ate the whole thing. There's nothing left of the plate. And Murari Gupta watched the whole thing. And he fell at the lotus feet of his son and said, you are my guru. So that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Prabhuji, we have the similar example in the Vitthal,
Same thing, yes.
Pandharpur.
Yes.
Same 5 years boy and gives the milk and
Yeah.
access.
And there was a girl devotee also, I forget her name now. Exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And then there was another girl devotee who used to take the garland to be offered to Krishna, put on herself, and then dance, and then give it to Krishna. And my mother noticed that, she got very angry and yelled at her and offered the garland to Krishna without allowing the girl to wear it. And Krishna won't put it on, it kept falling. And finally Krishna said, you did not let her wear it first. So that's what I'm talking about.
Prabhuji, that is Andal Prabhu.
I'm sorry?
Andal, and that is Andal.
Yes, that's
from
right.
South
Thank
India,
you.
and Ranganathan, Sri Rangam.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Yes. So I'm not making it up.
Of course not, Prabhu.
Okay, so did I answer your question, by the way, Radhamatu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay. So, excuse me. So as we were saying, that Bhava Bhakti can be achieved either by performing Vaidhi sadhana and Raganuga sadhana, or simply getting the mercy of Krishna. But in either case, you need mercy of Krishna or devotees. But in one, you have not done any sadhana. In another one, you have done it. Clear? Yes, no? Or did everybody go to Samadhi?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. All right. So then let's read the next paragraph.
I can read, Prabhuji.
Please go ahead.
An example of rising to the stage of ecstatic love by executing the regulative principle of devotional service is given in the life story of Narada, which is described described to Vasudeva in Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada tells there of his previous life and how he developed to the stage of ecstatic love. He was engaged in the service of great devotees and used to hear their talks and songs because he had an opportunity to hear these pastimes and songs of Krishna from the mouths of pure devotees. He became very attracted within his heart because he had become so eager to hear this topic. He gradually developed within himself an ecstatic love for Krishna. This ecstatic love is a prior to the pure love of Krishna, because in the next verse, Narada confirms that by the gradual process of hearing from the great sages, he developed love of Godhead. In that connection, Narad continues to say in the first canto, 5th chapter, verse 28 of the Bhagavatam, first I passed my days in the association of great sages. During the rainy autumn season, every morning and evening I heard them while they were singing and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, and thus my heart gradually become purified. As soon as I heard them with a great attention, the influence of the modes of material ignorance and passion disappeared, and I became firmly fixed in devotional service to the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So, Narad Muni's life story is the example of someone who achieved Bhava Bhakti by way of which Bhakti? Anybody? In terms of Vadhi, Raganuga, or pure Bhakti?
Pure Bhakti, Prabhu.
No, by way of what was the
Raganuga, I think, Prabhuji. Is it not?
No, he's
Then
hearing
with
from the
Vadhi
other
Bhakti.
devotees. He's listening very
Shravanam.
attentively.
He attended so Vaidhi Bhakti, he followed them so
Correct.
rigorously.
Hearing, by
Fifth
hearing.
So Vadhi Bhakti is what he did.
Yeah.
He sat down and attentively listen to the stories about Lord Krishna and his pastimes from these great sages.
Yep.
That is exactly what sadhana bhakti is, right? Hearing Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, right? She was doing Shravanam, right? And that led to the attraction and then to love, first to bhava, ecstasy, and then later on to love for Krishna. So Narad Muni is an example of someone who's sadhana siddh. He came to the process of Vadhi sadhana, Vadhi bhakti, of hearing about Krishna and his pastimes. And when the sages were chanting, he would chant with them. And just from hearing and chanting Hare Krishna mantra, his heart became purified. This is what we talked about earlier. But in the association of the devotees, and so all the ignorance went away, purity came in, samvit and Ladni potencies went to his heart and developed this ecstasy. It later on led to the love of Krishna. Right? Now, just to clarify it further, why is Vadhi Bhakti what Narad Muni did? Because Narad Muni was not motivated by any specific attraction to Krishna, but rather by obligation to the injunctions of the Shastras, which said, serve these souls, great souls. But by serving these great souls, he got the opportunity to regularly hear Krishna Katha from their lips. And from that regulated hearing, he achieved the level of bhava. Okay? Any questions about that? And I want to point out that Narad Muni is still practicing Vadhi Bhakti. What is he doing today after having achieved the love of Krishna?
Singing
Chanting
glories of
the,
Narayan.
chanting the
There you
glories.
go. He's chanting the glories of Krishna. He's preaching and chanting. So he's still performing Vadhi Bhakti, which is a question that was asked earlier. So even those who are at bhava level or prema level, they're still performing some components of Vadhi Bhakti, but they don't have to, or at least not with any rules or regulations. Okay, so we cannot make light of Vadhi Bhakti. That's our only option, by the way. For us, that's the only option. We cannot jump to Bhava Bhakti unless Krishna says, okay, I'd give you my kripa. You don't have to do it. Right? But I also mentioned that we cannot sit and wait for that. We have to continue with our Vadhi Bhakti.
But Prabhuji, those are the foundational steps too.
They are.
Like no matter if we speak sentences, we always have to remember this starts from ABC. So, right. So similarly, it goes on back. Yeah.
True. But when Krishna gives his mercy specifically to make you kripa siddha, then it just comes to you later. So the sequence changes. So you
Prabhuji,
become
who could be a perfect example of that? So we can understand.
karo intezar abhi, karo intezar.
Okay.
It's coming in a I think 1 or 2 paragraphs later.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So let's do the next paragraph.
Should I read, Prabhuji?
Please do. Yes.
This is a practical example of how one can develop the stage of ecstatic love simply by the association of pure devotees. It is essential, therefore, that one constantly associate with the pure devotees who are engaged morning and evening in chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. In this way, one will get the chance to purify his heart and develop his ecstatic pure love for Krishna. Continue.
No, that's the end of the paragraph, right?
Mhm.
So once again, if we go back to the example of Narad Muni, it says bhava is the which is the precursor to prema, and can be achieved by regularly and repeatedly listening to the discourses of the pure devotees. And His Holiness Radha Swami must give an example in a totally different context, but I really like that example. He said, if you associate with people who smoke, what are the chances that you'll become a smoker?
99%.
There you go. There you go. Same thing for, drugs, alcohol, anything. So similarly, if you continuously hang around the pure devotees, they'll become a pure devotee one day, assuming you follow what they're telling you, assuming you are attentive, assuming you're submissive, and those kind of things. Okay, so the next paragraph actually gives a nice quote to support that point. So somebody please go ahead. Actually, we did that either yesterday, week before on Wednesday in our Wednesday class. So somebody please go ahead.
Can I read, Prabhuji?
Please do.
This statement is also confirmed in the 3rd canto, 25th chapter, verse 25 of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Lord Kapila says, "My dear mother, when a person is actually in association with pure devotees, the sublime potency of my devotional service can be experienced. In other words, when a pure devotee speaks, his words act upon the hearts of the audience. What is the secret of hearing and chanting? A professional speaker cannot impress transcendental ecstasy within the hearts of the listeners. However, when a realized soul who is engaged in the service of the Lord is speaking, he has the potency to inject spiritual life within the audience. One should therefore seek the association of such pure, unalloyed devotees, and by such association and service, a neophyte devotee will certainly develop attachment, love, and devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead." Hare Krishna.
Right. So how many times have we heard Prabhupada and other senior sannyasis in our ISKCON movement talk about this point? Prabhupada often quoted a verse that talks about Sarp Uchishta Paya, which means that milk that's been touched by the lips of a serpent becomes very poisonous. So how does that apply here? Excuse me. Look at it this way. When we hear a person, consider the words, the sound of that person's like a car, which is delivering something to your door, which is the ears, your ears. And the passenger in that car is the consciousness of the speaker. So when we hear a speaker, it's not so much the words that enter. Sorry, it's not the words alone that enter our ears, but along with the words enters the consciousness of the speaker. which is the passenger. So therefore, the consciousness of the speaker has a direct impact upon us. So if the consciousness of the speaker is contaminated, polluted, then the effect of purification does not happen, even though we are hearing Krishna Katha, even though we are hearing, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, even though we're hearing some other bhajan. That's why we often hear people say, and I'm just going to take the name, that we should not listen to people like Anup Jalota because their character is not in line with the devotee's character. They're not pure devotee. They're very contaminated consciousness, not following any of the 4 regulative principles, so on and so forth. We also had a very wonderful singer in ISKCON movement. I won't take the name, but he's very famous. And he started getting married left and right. He had 5 or 6 wives. And people said, can't listen to him anymore, even though he's such a great, great singer. There was a similar situation with some other very famous singers in ISKCON who had literally fallen down. We don't want to hear them. This is the reason. So here the point is being made that when a realized soul engaged in the service of the Lord is speaking, he has the potency to inject a spiritual life in the hearts of the listener. And this is why Prabhupada said, purity is the, what's the word? Force.
Force.
Purity is the force. Is that purity, the force of that purity that pushes the 6 gates that are stopping things from entering the heart. What are those 6 gates? The 6 anarthas. They don't allow good things to enter the heart. But this force, the purity of the consciousness of this realized soul, moves those gates, moves them open. And therefore, the name, along with its potency, enters the heart of the person and the purification happens. And that's why the impact is on the heart of the person or listeners when a pure devotee is speaking compared to when a contaminated consciousness person is speaking. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Next paragraph will make it even more clear.
One question I have.
Please go ahead.
So when a contaminated consciousness person speaking, does it do a harm to a person, meaning, or does it have no effect? Like, question is, does it go negative for the audience?
It can. It can. It can. However, I should point out one thing. I'm glad you asked this question. Now, and I'm not trying to be humble. You can say, but Rupanuga, you're giving classes. With all your contamination in your consciousness, are you not negatively affecting us? And the answer would be yes, if I was at all deviating from whatever Prabhupada said. The day I start speaking something independently, not something I've heard from my guru or Prabhupada or other acharyas, that's when you say, Rupanuga, get out. I don't want to have anything to do with you. So that's the only thing. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Just a comment, Prabhuji. As I was reading this line, you were speaking about it. Professional speaker cannot impress upon the transcendental ecstasy.
Correct.
Yeah, that's example is in front of us, like Prabhupada when he was speaking, uncompromising, like he doesn't compromise on petty things, and people still listen to him, and they became pure devotee, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Nana?
I think what Anand Vilas Prabhu just said cleared what I have to say. Because I
Okay.
was thinking, like, there are so many other speakers like, say, Sadhguru and who not. I mean, like, when they speak, people do listen, people do have not 100% transformation, but some transformation. But whatever just he said they don't become the pure devotees. Of course they don't. So
Correct.
it got cleared. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, all right. So let's go. The next paragraph.
I can read, Prabhu.
Please do, yes.
Sometimes, however, it is found that without undergoing any
Land before that.
In the Padma Purana,
Oh, okay. I thought that was right. Okay. In the Padma Purana, there is a story of a neophyte devotee who, in order to raise herself to the ecstatic platform, danced all night to invoke the Lord's grace upon her. Hare Krishna.
all right. So here, Rupa Goswami is talking about a devotee by the name of, what was the name? Chandrakanti. She saw a deity of Krishna and she just wanted to dance for him. This intense desire to dance for Krishna. So she got up and all night she danced just to please Krishna. So what is this? This is an example of attaining the bhava through raganuga sadhana. So going back, with Narad Muni example was Vaidhi Bhakti. Now we're talking about raganuga bhakti. Why? Because this lady wanted to follow in the footsteps of some of the gopis who would dance for Krishna. So she was following the footsteps of these gopis, hence raganuga. It's the sadhana bhakti, but hence raganuga. So with raganuga sadhana, she achieved the bhava. Okay? And best, as we can see, she just danced all night without wasting a moment, without resting. And she wasn't worried about who's watching. It's the middle of the night, no problem, there was nobody there. She's not like some of the dancers we see in ISKCON, where they're looking at who's looking at them. So it's not about pleasing Krishna, it's about impressing other people. None of that was in her heart. She didn't want to waste a moment to rest. She just wanted to dance all night to please Krishna. So actually there is a term called avyartha kalatvam, which means don't waste a minute. And that's one of the symptoms of Bhava Bhakti. Do not waste a moment. Prabhupada always said about how Chanakya Pandit used to say, a moment of time is more valuable than millions of dollars, because what's gone is gone. You cannot get it back. So this lady did not want to waste a moment. She just wanted to dance all night for Krishna. And just doing that, she developed Bhava Bhakti. Okay. Now, next we'll talk about Kripa Siddhas. And hopefully we'll answer the question that Nana was asking before in that. And I want to just point out again, it's very rare that somebody becomes Kripa Siddha. Okay, and I just want to repeat, Prabhupada said this very clearly, that anybody expecting to achieve bhava by mercy alone, keyword is alone, is like one who expects to get a PhD degree, not by studying at a college or university, but getting it because somebody likes it. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next paragraph. Who would like to read that?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Please go. Yeah, please go.
Thank you. Sometimes, however, it is found that without undergoing any devotional process, one all of a sudden develops devotion for Lord Krishna. This sudden development of the devotional attitude in a person must be understood as a special mercy of Krishna or of his devotee. This apparently accidental development of ecstatic feelings through the causeless mercy of Krishna can be divided into three groups: simply by speaking, simply by glancing, and simply by good wishes.
Thank you. So now we're talking about Kripa Siddhas. It says the sudden development. So like you're sitting there, suddenly you develop Bhava Bhakti, which is the mercy of the Lord. Now, if you're wondering why would Krishna do that? I had asked that question. I was told that typically it would be a devotee, in a previous life who gave up their body before achieving perfection. And hence they became eligible for Krishna's mercy. So in this life, it looks like totally a hataki, no cause, sudden, but it's not really. Okay. However, Krishna's mercy always caused this anyway. And then Rupa Goswami is saying this causeless mercy can be divided into three groups. First is simply by speaking. The Sanskrit word, by the way, is vachika. V-A-C-H-I-K-A, which means vachika. V-A-C-H-I-K-A.
Okay.
Which means verbal blessing. The second one is glancing. Sanskrit word for this is alok dan or darshan dan, which is blessing by appearing in person in front of the devotee. And third is called good wishes, which is harda, H-A-R-D-A, which means a heartfelt, unspoken blessing. We're going to talk about all three in the next few paragraphs. Okay, so next paragraph, we'll talk about vachika or verbal blessing. Who would like to do that?
I can do Prabhuji.
If you
Okay.
can.
Should I go?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. In the Naradya Puran, there is a statement about development of ecstatic love simply by speaking. Lord Krishna said to Narad, "O best of the Brahmans, I wish that you may develop unalloyed devotional service to me, which is full of transcendental bliss and all auspiciousness."
So here's Krishna is blessing Narad Muni. This is what vachika means verbal blessing.
Verbal.
This is a verbal blessing from Krishna to Narad Muni. May you develop unalloyed devotional service. Okay, so that's the first example. Second one is called alok dan, darshan dan, or simply by glancing. So this is blessing by personal appearance. Okay, go ahead.
So I can read.
Please go ahead.
In Skanda Purana, there is a statement about developing ecstatic love towards Krishna simply by glancing. It is stated here, when the inhabitants of Jungle province saw the personality of Godhead Krishna, they were so stricken with feeling that they could not withdraw their glance for him.
Right. So these inhabitants were not really qualified to see the Lord, but out of simple causeless mercy, he gave them his darshan.
Yep.
They looked upon him. They were so taken, and they were so taken by him, that is, and they're so stricken with the feeling, which is the bhava, they could not look away from Krishna, even for a moment. And so they were blessed by the personal appearance of the Lord. Similarly, in Vrindavan Leela, Krishna would give mercy to all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. They couldn't look away from him either. So blessing them by personal appearance. Okay, the third one is the heartfelt blessings by either Krishna or by the devotees. So somebody wants to read that?
Can I read, Prabhu?
Please do.
As far as heartfelt wishes are concerned, there is a statement in the Sukha Samhita where Narada tells Srila Vyasadeva, "You have a son who is the greatest devotee of the personality of Godhead, and I can observe that without any following of the regulative principles of devotional service, he is already enriched with many of the symptoms achieved by the execution of devotional service after many, many births." Hare Krishna.
Right. So who are we referring to here?
Sukadeva Goswami.
Shukadeva Goswami. Yes. So it says when he was still in the womb, he got blessed. So the story is, and I'm not going to get into a lot of details of the story, but Shukadeva in his previous life was Radharani's parent. And his job was to take Radharani's messages to Krishna and Krishna's messages back to Radharani. And every time he did, and every time he did that, Radharani he would sit on the left hand of Radharani, and Radharani will feed him pomegranate seeds. And after some time, Krishna said to Mother Radharani that it's time to wrap up our pastime. So everybody would go back to Golok Vrindavan. Radharani spoke to her parrot Shuka and said, we are wrapping up our pastime, going back to Golok Vrindavan, but I want you to stay.
Mm.
And he started crying. He says, you cannot do this to me, please. I mean, I'll die without you, without Krishna, without hearing Krishna Katha. You know, how am I going to survive? Please take me with you. What offense have I done that you won't take me with you? And she said, no offense. You have not done any offense, but this is my desire, this is Krishna's desire. So you please stay in the material world for a while. And he said, okay, but I cannot survive without hearing your Katha. So she said, so go ahead, fly to wherever Bhagavatam is being read, and you listen to it. And then they disappeared. So in desperation, Shuka the parrot started flying, and he heard some faint narration of Srimad Bhagavatam from Kailash Parvat. So he went there straight, sat on a tree. So green parrot kind of got hidden within the green leaves. He sat down, and Lord Shiva was about to narrate Srimad Bhagavatam to Mother Parvati. But before he started, he said to her, you always fall asleep when I do Katha. So I don't want to do that. So I need your assurance that you will not fall asleep. I said, yeah, I assure you, Bhagavatam is so interesting, I will not fall asleep. He said, no, I don't believe you. She said, well, then what do I do? He said, every few moments, you say, What did he say? And she said, okay, fine. So Lord Shiva started, and she was listening. And so was the parrot. And every few moments, she'll say, And then she couldn't help it. After a while, she fell asleep. Now, Shuka got worried that if Lord Shiva doesn't hear anymore, he'll stop. He did not want him to stop. So in the voice of Mother Parvati, he started saying, And Lord Shiva finished the whole entire Bhagavatam. When it was finished, he opened his eyes and he looked at his wife and said, so, did you understand? Did you hear everything? And she confessed that no, she had fallen asleep a long time ago. So now he was really puzzled. He said, wait a minute. If you were sleeping, then who was saying,
Bird.
And he started looking around. Because green parrot was hidden behind the green leaves, he couldn't foresee him. But like Lord Shiva has, very sharp eyes, he finally noticed. Now, there was a logic that he was using. He said, what's the main habit of parrots? Anybody?
They repeat what they see.
They repeat whatever they hear.
Mm.
So Lord Shiva's fear was that he'll go places and repeat to whomever is there. But he may be repeating it to people who are undeserving of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So he said, therefore, this parrot has to be killed. And he picked up his trident and ran towards the tree. As soon as the parrot Shuka realized that Lord Shiva was coming after me with a trident in hand, he flew away for fear of death. And Lord Shiva was chasing him. They went through long distances, flying, and Lord Shiva chasing him. Finally, they got to Badrikashram, where Vyasdev was sitting. And he was narrating Srimad Bhagavatam to his wife. Anybody knows her name?
Vatika, Prabhu?
Very
Vatika?
good. Who said that? Bhattika, yes. Who said that? Sorry, I couldn't see who said
Sorry, Prabhu, Rukmini said that.
that. Hare Bol, Rukmini, I should expect you to know that. Yes. Yes, it was Bhattika. So she was listening, and Vyasdev was narrating. In the meantime, the parrot was flying, being chased by Lord Shiva. And he saw this hermitage, the cottage where this thing was happening. So he flew in there. Right at that moment, Vatika fell asleep, so she yawned. As soon as she yawned, he entered her mouth,
Mhm.
through her mouth to the womb. And then immediately Lord Shiva showed up. I said to Vyasdev, when he saw Vyasdev, he offered his respects and asked him if he had seen a parrot fly in. And Vyasdev said, yes, he just flew in, but he flew into the mouth of my wife, now he's in the womb. So Lord Shiva was, in order to kill the parrot, was going to kill the wife also. So Vyasdev got worried, and he said, my dear Lord, it is you who has said that anybody who hears the Bhagavatam becomes immortal. So how can you kill this parrot? He has become immortal. And Lord Shiva said, okay, Adi, you're right. And he went away. In the meantime, excuse me, the parrot as a male child now was growing in the womb of the mother Vatika. And Shukadev decided that he was not going to come out because this world is full of Maya. He doesn't want to have anything to do with Maya. Therefore, he stayed in the womb. 16 years he stayed in the womb. Finally, Vyasdev said, this is crazy. And his wife is going crazy and Vyasdev is going crazy. So he started talking to the boy in the womb. Please come out. I assure you, you will not be influenced by Maya. I'll bless you, this and that. But the boy won't listen. He stayed. So now Vyasdev was really desperate. So he went to Dwarka, where Krishna was living. He told Krishna his problem and invited him to come to Badrikashram and talk this boy into coming out of the womb. So Krishna came all the way to Badrikashram into this hut where Vatika was there, and he spoke to the boy, Shukadev. And he said, don't worry, I bless you. I bless you that you will not be affected by Maya and you remain a devotee. And that's when he decided to come out. So that's the story behind this statement that Narada Muni is talking to Vyasdev about this blessing from Krishna for Shukadeva Goswami. And so basically, while still within the womb, from this blessing, Shukadeva Goswami achieved the Bhava stage. Even before he had come out of the womb, or he saw the Lord, he just could hear the Lord. Okay, so basically, he achieved the Bhava Bhakti by Lord's blessings. Okay. Any questions? Okay, so we are near the end. I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, I know somebody's asking me or just talking in the background. Okay, so chapter 17 then finishes with two examples. And hopefully that will answer the question Nana had asked before of achieving bhava, the good wishes or the blessings of a devotee. We just talked about the blessings of the Lord. Now talk about the blessings of the devotee. And first example is Prahlad Maharaj. Who blessed him while he was still in the womb of mother? Yes, the devotee. Second example is Mrigari, the hunter. Who blessed him?
Narad Muni.
Narad Muni again. And he became from a hunter, he became an exalted devotee who would not even want to kill an ant. So let's read the next paragraph.
Can I read? Prabhu?
May I? Okay, Prabhu, go ahead.
Mataji wanted to read. Let's read.
No, it's
Prabhu,
okay,
please go
Prabhu.
ahead. No, please go ahead.
It's okay.
As for aesthetic love of Krishna, there is a statement in the 7th canto, 4th chapter, verse 36 of Srimad Bhagavatam, in which Narada addresses King Yudhishthira. My dear king, it is very difficult to describe the character of Prahlad. He developed a natural attraction for Krishna, and whatever I can explain about his character will simply be an arrangement of words. His actual character is impossible to describe. This means that Narada himself admitted that the natural development of Prahlad's ecstatic love was by the grace of Lord Krishna.
Right. So initiated by the devotee Narada, but by the grace of the Lord. So this is how a devotee's blessings work. The devotee blesses, but Krishna is the one who actually does the work. So, and just to make the point that Krishna's mercy, Narada's mercy was on Prahlad Maharaj, who were the two people hearing at this time, including Prahlad Maharaj. So Prahlad Maharaj was one. Who was the other person listening to Narad Muni?
Kayadu.
Kayadu, the mother. And Kayadu did not become a devotee. So much so that she actually agreed to poison Prahlad Maharaj because her husband wanted her to.
Holika?
No. Kayadu, the mother.
Yeah.
Holika tried to burn him. Kayadu poisoned him with a kheer mixed with poison. So my point is, she did not have the mercy. So she heard the same words, same messages, same philosophy. But she did not become a devotee, Prahlad Maharaj became a pure devotee. So it has to be proper candidate. So for example, Krishna's mercy everywhere, but only the recipient, appropriate recipient gets it. Okay? This is the next paragraph.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Mataji, please go ahead.
This natural attraction for Krishna on the part of Prahlad was developed simply by the mercy of Narada. When Prahlad Maharaj was within the womb of his mother, she was being sympathetically instructed by Narada about the science of devotional service, and at the same time, Narada was wishing that the child within the womb could also take advantage of the instructions. Because Narada, an authorized devotee and great associate of the personality of Godhead, was desiring auspiciousness for Prahlad Maharaj. He developed all the characteristics of a high-grade devotee. This is called natural attraction. It is caused by the special grace of the personality of Godhead, or by the special grace of a great devotee like Narada.
Right. So Prahlad Maharaj received the mercy, his mother did not. And there was special consideration for him. And that's how he developed his Bhava Bhakti. So he's called Kripasiddh. Right? He had not done any sadhana bhakti before he was born. But he was born a pure devotee. So that's one example of Kripasiddha. Okay, second example is another person who wants to read the next paragraph.
May I, Prabhu?
Please go ahead.
There is a statement in the Skanda Purana wherein Parvata Muni tells Narada, "My dear Narada, of all saintly persons, you are so great and glorious that simply by your good wishes, a low-born hunter also has become a great elevated devotee of Lord Krishna."
Yeah.
This ecstatic love for Krishna can be divided into 5 divisions, which will be described by Sri Rupa Goswami later on.
Right, thank you. So we all know the story about the hunter. He became so pure after instructions from Narad Muni and receiving his mercy that when Parvat Muni and Narad Muni came to visit him, he ran towards them, but Parvat Muni said to Narad Muni, "Why is this guy running so funny?" And Narad Muni said he wants to make sure that as he's running towards us, does not step on a single ant. So making sure he avoids them. Who else do we know of who was doing the same thing and got into trouble? Jada Bharat, very good.
Jada Bharat, yes.
Exactly. As he was carrying in the palanquin, King Rahugana, he was trying to avoid stepping on ants as he was walking funny. I got into big trouble, but that was an opportunity for him to preach to King Rahugana. And we all know that story. So anyway, the point is, the hunter became such a great devotee simply by the mercy of a pure devotee of the Lord. And the last line really is basically telling us that later chapters, actually chapters 20 to 34 of our book, Nectar of Devotion, talk about 5 divisions of Bhava Bhakti. So just I leave the names, can't get to the details. First, Vibhav, or Vibhav, I should say, which is special symptoms or causes of ecstasy. Next, Anubhav, which is subsequent ecstasy. And this Sattvic Bhav, which is constitutional or existential ecstasy. And this Vyabhichari Bhav, which is aggressive ecstasy. This Thai Bhav, which is continuous, permanent ecstasy. So chapters 20 through 34 talk about that. It's not in the context today. So we'll stop here and see if there are any questions or comments.
Prabhuji,
Ah.
so what did Kayadu and Hiranyakashipu did that they had a baby like Prahlad?
So this is, no, they didn't have to do anything. This is Krishna's plan. Nobody can plan to have this or that kind of a child or this or particular soul. Nobody can do that. It's all Krishna's plan. But also it goes to show that a demon can have a devotee child and devotee can have a demon child. It's totally independent. It's not their choice. It's not the parents' choice. In the material, the only person who has a choice to which parents, which city they'll appear is the Lord. Conditioned souls have that, do not have that choice.
So Prabhuji, what's the purpose of that Garbhadan Sanskar? What's the, people usually do it. What's the purpose of that then?
So Garbhadan Sanskar is done before a soul comes in, and it's done to pray to the Lord to please send a soul that would be a devotee or whatever. So it's before the soul has arrived, but still Krishna's mercy to do this or not. We are praying to Krishna. If he's merciful, he'll say, okay, we'll give you a soul like that. But still not our choice. We can't say, oh, I did Garbhadan Sanskar and look at the rascal I got. We can't do that.
Acha.
Right?
Okay, it's still, at the end of the day, it's Krishna.
At the end of it, every day, everything is Krishna's sanction.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
can't force it.
Yes, true.
That's why in our prayers we say, if you so wish, if you so desire, then you please do that.
Yes, you're right. Thank you.
Sure.
We can only beg for the mercy, and he's Swarat anyways, right?
Exactly. He's a total Swarat, total, complete independent.
Prabhuji,
Huh.
so the example giving in the book around that Vachika thing, like simply by speaking. So according to that, Narad Muni got both Kripa Siddhi and the Sadhana Siddhi.
Correct. Yes, that's correct. Very good. Yeah, correct.
Okay.
He's not the only one. There are many, many other devotees. Because they become Sadhana Siddhi, they get Kripa anyway. Because Krishna is so pleased. Lo bacha ye bhi le lo.
Displayer of Krishna.
Sorry, Prabhu?
Displayer of Krishna, whatever he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
So Kripa Siddhi is basically like playing lottery.
Yeah, that's right. And as you know,
otherwise आपने कम से कम दूसरे वाली भक्ति करके कुछ तो किया.
That's right.
That's right. It's like a lottery. भगवान की कृपा हो जाए तो लॉटरी है.
Yeah, we can't depend on that. We definitely cannot depend on that. You can pray for it.
Yeah, they should.
Any other questions or comments?
हरे कृष्णा पिताश्री।
हाँ हरे कृष्णा।
हरे कृष्ण पिताश्री, जैसे भी माता जी ने क्वेश्चन किया है कि गर्भाधान संस्कार जो होता है, तो प्रेयर की है जैसे कृष्णा से, एवरीथिंग इज ओके, बट इसमें कर्म कहाँ से हो जाता है? जो अपने पिछले जो कर्म है वो कहाँ तक सीमित होते हैं पिताश्री?
कर्म माता पिता के कि बच्चे के?
बच्चे के।
So whichever
Prabhu,
soul
can you
comes
please
in.
repeat that question in English, Prabhu, please?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay.
She's asking, what about, where do the karmas come in? When you perform the Garbhadhan Sanskar and a particular soul comes in. So remember, except for the exceptions where you talk about pure devotee getting Lord as the son, we are all conditioned souls. Soul that's coming into the womb of the mother after Garbhadhan Sanskar is also conditioned soul. By definition, a conditioned soul has karmas. So even if the son turns out to be a pure devotee, after whatever, the karmas are there. So therefore, it all depends upon what Krishna has decided, what kind of karmas, so what soul with what kind of karmas will come in. So yeah, it will be devotee, but with karmas. Now, I should also point out, not to confuse everybody, that there are 3 types of karmas. The individual karmas, which is yours and yours alone, and this shared karmas. And there is, can you please mute yourself if there's some conversation going on in the background? Please mute yourself. And then there's group karmas. So what is a shared karma? Let me give you an example. Suppose somebody buys a leather sofa. Now don't do that, but I'm saying suppose somebody buys a leather sofa and he gets guests to sit on the sofa. So let's talk about who's sharing the karma of the person who killed the cow, who was skinned to get the skin out, and the skin was turned into leather. The leather was then turned into whatever shape it takes to make sofas. And somebody took that leather, made sofas. Somebody shipped it. Somebody stored it in the warehouse. Somebody sold it. Somebody bought it, had the guests sit on it. Every one of them shared that karma of the person who killed the cow. So that's the shared karma. Then there's group karma. An airplane like Air India was in 1984, flying someplace, there's a crash, everybody dies. Only those people who shared that one group karma, which meant they will have a death at the same time with the same means, their group karma was of that. So those are 3 karmas. So they all play a role in whichever soul comes in as your son or daughter, despite your Garbhadhan Sanskar. So there's no getting away from that. Okay?
So, Prabhuji, when so many people died in COVID, you're saying that everybody had group karma there?
A group karma, which is something will happen at the same time, same way to these people.
So is this group karma the same as collective karma? What Prabhupada will?
It's not collective karma because they may not have done something together, but whatever they did had the same result. Hence, group karma as opposed to shared karma.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pitashri. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking. Good question.
Thank you.
Prabhuji.
Huh.
So let's say, parents, sometimes when you see the children are not that good, they make so much trouble in parents' lives. So what kind of karma? Because now both of them are going through such trouble in their life because the child is going through trouble and at the same time parents. So what kind of karma would that be? Is it like a shared karma or?
It could be all 3. It could be. We don't know these things. It could be all 3.
Okay.
Certainly the individual karma is there.
Individual.
So let's take the example. Suppose you get a rotten child. It is your karma also that you got a rotten child, because all the difficulties, the troubles will come to you because of the child. So that's your individual karma, right? So that's there for sure. Then it's the shared karma that you both sharing whatever group karmas you're suffering together. Child is suffering, you're suffering. So it could be all three.
It applies to like your family members, who,
Yeah, that's exactly
your
right.
brother, sister,
It's
any
all connected.
relationship that you get into.
It could be
it's all-
friends, it could be
Yeah.
acquaintances, it could be co-workers, it could be your boss. or it
Yeah,
could be
yeah,
not an
that's
employee.
true.
So yeah, it's so vast and encompasses everything.
Yes.
This is why karma is so difficult to understand. But it's there.
Yes, true. Yes, thank you.
Sure.
It gets so complicated, Prabhuji. Yes, as you said,
it's very
it gets
complicated.
very complicated. So that's not the focus. The focus is what we have to do. And mass casualty is a big example, like recent earthquakes, and we see all the time tsunamis and earthquakes.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's another good example.
It's very complicated subject.
Sure is. Sure is. Okay, any last questions? It's time now, time is up. Any last questions? Okay, then Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhya evacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namaha. Yeah, I also wanted to point out, I forgot to mention, I will not be here next week. So there'll be no class next week, but week after we'll start again. So I'll send a note out, so you will all know, but there'll be no class next week.
I was about to say we'll miss you next week, and you said before that.
Sorry?
I was about to say we'll miss you, in fact, next week, and you said
okay.
before that.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you all.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, who's that?
Father Prabhuji.
Oh, Hari Bol, Arav. Hari Bol.
Say Hari Bol. Hari Bol.
Good boy. Okay.
He will sit beside me to listen to
Very
all
nice.
the class.
That's really nice.
Yeah. So I don't say no, because whether he understands or not, at least your preachings are going into his ears. So
That's good. Yeah. No, that's wonderful. Oh, no, he's the interest. That's the main thing.
Karmas.
Yeah, that's very nice. Arav, we are very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.